Dusty's discovery. Dusty poked at the congealed oatmeal in his bowl. It looked like cement, tasted worse. He swallowed it down anyway, each bite a reminder of the electricity bill looming like a vulture. He ran a hand over his stubbled chin, the rasp a familiar comfort. Scrapping today was crucial. Not just to keep the lights on, but maybe, just maybe, to afford a decent birthday present for Billy. The desert air already shimmered with heat as he climbed into his battered pickup. The engine coughed, sputtered, then roared to life, a mechanical beast reluctantly awakened. He headed towards the dried-up riverbed, a place he'd usually avoid. Too far out, too little yield. But desperation had a way of rewriting the map. He hadn't been walking 10 minutes, the sun already baking the cracked earth, when he saw them. For figures, she just tightened her grip on the boy beside her. "I'm Dusty," he tried again, softer this time. "What are your names?" After a long, tense silence, the girl spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm Lily. This is Sam, and these are Leo and Daisy." She didn't offer any explanation, any plea. Just watched him with those watchful, haunted eyes. Dusty knelt, his knees cracking in protest. He pulled out the water bottle he'd brought, the condensation slick against his palm. "You thirsty?" Lily hesitated, then nodded slightly. He handed her the bottle, and she took a small sip before passing it to Sam. He saw the careful rationing, the ingrained habit of scarcity. He knew then. Knew that these kids were abandoned, lost. And he knew with a sickening certainty that he couldn't just leave them here. But how could he take them in? His own life was a precarious balancing act, one wrong step from disaster. He pictured Billy's hopeful face, the joy he found in the smallest things. Could he really provide for 4 more children? The electricity bill flashed in his mind, the cement-like oatmeal stuck in his throat. He looked at Lily, at the way she held her siblings, a tiny fortress of love and protection. He saw the artwork sketched in the dirt at her fingertips, charcoal lines scratching out faces of memory. Melancholic sketches of a family, the faces fading like ghosts on the parched earth. In that moment, the moral calculations in his head slammed to a halt. He knew what he had to do. "Come on," he said, standing up. "Let's get you all home." A home for now. The trailer was smaller than it looked from the road, tin glinting dully under the setting sun. Dusty unlocked the flimsy door, the metallic screech echoing in the sudden silence. He stepped inside, gesturing for the children to follow. Hesitantly, they shuffled in behind him, eyes wide and darting around the cramped space. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light filtering through the grimy windows, illuminating worn furniture and stacks of books precariously balanced on every surface. The air smelled of dust, stale coffee, and something vaguely mechanical. Lily, the oldest, clutched her younger brother's hand, her knuckles white. "It's not much," Dusty said, his voice rough, "but it's home. For now." Their faces remained impassive, giving nothing away. He gestured toward a lopsided table. "I'll fix you something to eat. Beans and bread, okay?" Silence. Dusty sighed, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. "Look, I know you're scared. I would be too. But I'm not going to hurt you. I promise." He busied himself at the tiny stove, the clatter of pots and pans a clumsy counterpoint to the children's stillness. He opened a can of beans, the metallic tang filling the air. As he spooned the warmed beans onto chipped plates and sliced thick slabs of bread, he noticed Lily inching closer, drawn by the aroma. He placed a plate in front of each of them. They stared at the food, their hunger warring with their apprehension. Finally, the youngest, a boy with wide, tear-stained eyes, tentatively reached for a piece of bread. Lily followed suit, breaking off a small piece and chewing it slowly, her gaze fixed on Dusty. He sat down opposite them, careful not to crowd them. "So," he said gently, "how about names? Makes things easier." The children remained silent, their eyes downcast. Dusty waited, letting the silence stretch. He understood their fear. Trust wasn't given, it was earned. After a long moment, Lily spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm Lily." Dusty smiled, a genuine smile that reached his tired eyes. "Nice to meet you, Lily." "I'm Dusty." He paused, waiting. She hesitated, then gestured to the boy beside her. "This is Sam." "Another beat." "And these are Daisy and Peter." Dusty nodded slowly, committing their names to memory. "How old are you all?" Lily's shoulders tightened. I'm 10. Sam is 6. Daisy is 4, and Peter is almost 3. 10 years old and carrying the weight of the world, Dusty thought, his heart aching for her. He cleared his throat. "Right then. Well, Lily, Sam, Daisy, and Peter. Welcome to my humble abode. There's a blanket in the cupboard for each of you. You can sleep on the floor tonight. We'll figure something else out tomorrow." The children ate in silence, their initial reluctance slowly fading as their hunger subsided. Dusty watched them, a strange mix of weariness and hope swirling within him. This was a long way from the life he'd imagined, but somehow, in this small, dusty trailer, surrounded by these 4 vulnerable children, he felt a flicker of something akin to purpose. Maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. A home for now. Whispers in town. The bell above the door of the general store jingled, announcing Dusty's arrival. He needed flour, sugar, and coffee. Essentials. He tried to ignore the way Mrs. Henderson, behind the counter, eyed him. News traveled fast in Harmony Creek, faster than the tumbleweeds that skipped across the desert highway. "Mornin', Dusty," she said, her voice a touch too sweet. "Heard you've taken in some company." Dusty forced a smile. Just helping out. They needed a place to stay. He could feel other eyes on him now. Mr. Peterson paused his conversation about cattle prices, and a gaggle of teenagers by the penny candy display went silent. Dusty grabbed the flour, feeling the weight of their scrutiny. "Well, it's mighty kind of you," Mrs. Henderson continued, not sounding convinced. "Before? That's a handful." Dusty paid for his groceries, the silence pressing in on him. He mumbled a goodbye and hurried out, the paper bag digging into his palm. He imagined the whispers trailing him down Main Street. Later that afternoon, a knock echoed through his small house. It was Mrs. Gable, her face lined with concern as she held out a casserole dish covered in foil. "Dusty, dear, I made you a little something. Heard you had some extra mouths to feed." "That's real kind of you, Mrs. Gable." "Thank you." She stepped inside, her nose twitching. "They settling in all right? Well, Harmony Creek ain't always been kind to outsiders." She placed the casserole on his worn kitchen table. "And children need structure. Stability." Dusty bristled. "They're good kids, Mrs. Gable. They just need a chance." "Of course, dear, of course. But you know how folks talk. And Sheriff Brody, well, he's got a job to do, making sure everything's on the up and up." Her words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken anxieties. He thanked her again, wanting her to leave, to take the simmering pot of suspicion with her. The encounter with Sheriff Brody came the next morning. Dusty was fixing a leaky pipe under the porch when he saw the cruiser pull up. Brody, a man whose face seemed permanently etched with disapproval, unfolded himself from the vehicle. "Rivers," he greeted, his voice gravelly. "Got a minute?" Dusty wiped his hands on a rag, his stomach tightening. Lily peeked out from behind the curtains, her face pale. "What can I do for you, Sheriff? Heard some talk about you taking in some kids." "Runaways, maybe?" "They're not runaways," Dusty said, his voice firm. "They were abandoned. I found them out by Rattlesnake Ridge." Brody's eyes narrowed. "Abandoned, huh? And you reported this too?" "I haven't had a chance yet. Been busy making sure they had food and a roof over their heads." "Right," Brody said, unconvinced. He took a step closer, his gaze sweeping over the house. "Well, I'm going to need to see some identification for these kids. And talk to them myself." Dusty stood his ground. "They've been through a lot, Sheriff. They don't need to be interrogated. It's my job, Rivers, to protect the children of this county." "Then give them a chance," Dusty pleaded, his voice raw. "They're good kids. They just need someone to care." Brody didn't reply, his expression unreadable. "I'll be back tomorrow," he said, turning towards his cruiser. "With the proper paperwork." Dusty watched him drive away, the dust swirling in his wake. He turned back. Hidden talents. The roof still leaked, a persistent drip 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 that echoed through the small house, a constant reminder of Dusty's failings. He was patching it again, balancing precariously on a wobbly ladder when he heard the soft scratching. He glanced down. Lily was squatting on the porch, a collection of broken crayons scattered around her. He'd found them in a ditch, tossed out with other unwanted things. He'd meant to throw them away, but she'd salvaged them. Now, she was meticulously peeling the paper off a particularly stubborn stub of blue. He watched, intrigued, as she began to sketch on a scrap of cardboard, her brow furrowed in concentration. He usually saw her taking care of the others, a miniature mother hen, but here, she was lost in something else entirely. Later, when he climbed down, stiff and aching, he saw the finished product. It was a drawing of the desert landscape, the stark beauty captured with surprising skill. A single cactus stood tall against a vibrant sunset sky, the colors somehow richer than the faded crayons should have allowed. There was a loneliness in the picture, but also a resilience, a quiet strength. "That's beautiful, Lily," he said, genuinely surprised. She shrugged, her cheeks flushing. "It's just the desert." He knew it was more than that. Later that day, Sam, usually the most rambunctious of the bunch, was unusually quiet. Dusty found him by the old shed, kneeling in the dust. A mangy, one-eared dog, ribs showing through its matted fur, cowered before him. Dusty tensed, ready to intervene, but Sam held out a hand, palm up, and spoke in a low, soothing voice. "Easy, boy. It's all right. I won't hurt you." The dog whimpered, but didn't run. Slowly, tentatively, it crept closer, sniffing Sam's hand. Then it licked it. Sam smiled, a rare, unguarded smile. He gently stroked the dog's head, and the dog leaned into his touch, its tail giving a weak wag. Dusty watched, amazed. He tried to shoo the dog away earlier, but it had snarled and snapped. Sam seemed to have a way with it and understanding. That evening, as they ate their meager dinner of beans and rice, Maya, usually the quietest of the siblings, surprised him again. Dusty had been rummaging through a box of forgotten things he'd inherited with the house when he unearthed a battered old encyclopedia. It was missing several volumes and smelled of mildew, but Maya snatched it up with a gleam in her eye. Now she was reciting facts from it, her voice clear and precise. "Did you know that the average lifespan of a desert tortoise is 80 years?" she announced. "And that they can survive for over a year without water?" Dusty stared at her. "How do you know that?" "It was in the encyclopedia," she said simply, flipping through the brittle pages. "Page 417. He checked. She was right. He tested her with other random facts, and she knew them all. Her memory was astounding. Then there was Tom. The radio, a relic from another era, had sputtered and died weeks ago, leaving them in silence. Dusty had resigned himself to its demise, figuring he'd never be able to afford a new one. But Tom, tinkering with a screwdriver and a pile of spare parts he'd scavenged from who knew where, had other ideas. Dusty found him hunched over the radio, his brow furrowed in concentration, wires splayed around him like a surgeon's tools. Hours later, a crackling voice filled the room. It was a scratchy country song, but it was music. Dusty stopped what he was doing, storm clouds gathering. The rapping on the worn door sent a chill down Dusty's spine, colder than a winter wind off the mesa. He knew, deep down, what this portended. Wiping sweaty palms on his faded denims, he plastered on a smile that felt like cracking plaster. Silhouetted against the harsh afternoon light stood a pair, a woman in a severe business suit and a uniformed officer. "Mr. Rivers," the woman's voice cut through the air like shards of glass. "Ms. Alara, Child Protective Services. This is Officer Miller." Dusty's throat constricted. He ushered them into the meager dwelling, the already tight quarters feeling claustrophobic under their assessing stares. Lily, ever the watchful guardian, drew her younger siblings behind her, their expressions mirroring his own apprehension. Ms. Alara dispensed with pleasantries. "We've received multiple reports regarding the state of this residence, Mr. Rivers. While your willingness to care for these children is commendable, there are serious concerns." She indicated the cramped, untidy space, the roof-bearing tattered patches, the mismatched, threadbare furnishings. "The environment is substandard." Dusty's resolve hardened. "I'm stretching every dollar, ma'am." "Effort isn't enough, Mr. Rivers," she retorted, her tone unwavering. "We require tangible improvement. Consistent nourishment, hygienic conditions, a secure and dependable home. We will return in 14 days. Absent progress, we will have no alternative but to initiate foster placement." The words landed like blows. Dusty glanced at Lily, whose face was a study in silent dread, and vowed he'd move heaven and earth before letting that happen. After they departed, only the stifled sniffles of the youngest broke the oppressive quiet. A surge of adrenaline coursed through Dusty. He grabbed the dilapidated broom, its bristles nearly gone, and began to sweep, stirring up more dust devils than he eliminated. Lily, mirroring his urgency, seized a cloth and began to scrub at the grimy windows. "It'll be all right, Lilybug," he promised, his voice thick with forced bravado. "We'll mend this. We'll straighten it all out." The remainder of the day was a blur of frantic activity. He hammered at loose planks, scoured the outhouse until his hands were raw, and even managed to coax the ancient washing machine back to sputtering life. Lily toiled alongside him, her artistic inclinations temporarily abandoned beneath the weight of the impending threat. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky not with its usual glory, but a sickly, jaundiced light, Dusty became aware of a shift in the atmosphere. The wind rose, swirling miniature cyclones of dust across the arid ground. "Sandstorm brewing," he murmured, a fresh wave of despair threatening to engulf him. Just what he needed. He scrambled to secure the windows and doors, already feeling the abrasive sting of grit against his skin. Lily herded the children inside, anxiety etched on her young face. The gale howled, buffeting the house and rattling the panes. Outside, the world dissolved into a maelstrom of sand and swirling particles. Dusty gazed out at the raging tempest, a stark reflection of the turmoil within. 14 days to work a miracle. 14 days to demonstrate his worth. 14 days to safeguard his family. And outside, the unforgiving desert threatened to consume them all. The desert's fury. The first grains stung like needles against Dusty's face as he fought his way back from the well. The wind howled a mournful dirge, whipping his threadbare coat around him. He tasted grit, a metallic tang that coated his tongue. The air, thick with sand, scratched at his throat with every ragged breath. This wasn't just a sandstorm, this was the desert's fury unleashed. He slammed the door shut, the flimsy wood shuddering under the onslaught. Inside, the children huddled together, their faces pale in the dim light filtering through the grimy windows. Lily clutched little Sam, her eyes wide with fear. Even boisterous Tom was uncharacteristically quiet, clinging to Sarah's hand. "It's all right," Dusty said, his voice strained, trying to project a confidence he didn't feel. "Just a bit of a blow. We've seen worse." He grabbed a tattered blanket and wedged it against the gap beneath the door, but the sand still found its way in, swirling around their ankles like a malevolent spirit. He checked the windows, reinforcing them with whatever he could find, old planks of wood, a rusted metal sheet. The wind hammered against the fragile structure, rattling the glass panes. Each gust felt like a blow, testing the house's resilience, his own resilience. Suddenly, the lights flickered and died, plunging them into near darkness. A collective gasp rose from the children. Sarah began to cry, a soft, whimpering sound that cut through the wind's roar. "Easy now, sweet pea," Dusty said, scooping her up. "It's just the power. We have candles." He fumbled for the box of matches, his hands shaking. The flame, once lit, cast dancing shadows on the walls, exaggerating their fears. Lily pulled out her sketch pad and a stub of charcoal. She began to draw, her hand moving swiftly across the paper. Dusty watched her, a flicker of something akin to hope igniting within him. She wasn't drawing monsters or swirling sand. She was drawing a tree, its branches reaching towards the sky, its roots burrowing deep into the earth. A single bird perched on one of the branches. "It's beautiful, Lilybug," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Tom, ever the pragmatist, broke the spell. "Are we going to run out of water?" Dusty's stomach clenched. He hadn't thought that far ahead. The well was exposed. If the storm kept raging, it could be contaminated. He forced a smile. "We have plenty," he lied. "Enough for everyone." He knew with a sickening certainty that the desert's fury was far from over. And he had 4 precious lives depending on him to weather the storm. Rising from the dust, Dusty Rivers watched Lily from across the dusty square, a knot of anxiety tightening in his stomach. The storm had ravaged everything, stripping the already struggling town of its meager dignity. Now, Lily, usually so withdrawn, was transforming a scarred wall into a riot of color. He chewed on his lip, the taste of grit familiar now. Money was tighter than ever. He'd been scraping by before, now he wasn't sure how he'd feed them all. "Lily," he called, his voice rough. "You okay, sweetie? You need anything?" She didn't turn, just dipped her brush into a vibrant blue. "Just paint, Dusty." The mural was breathtaking. Even in its unfinished state, it depicted a phoenix rising from swirling sand, its wings a kaleidoscope of desert hues. People stopped to stare, their faces etched with a fragile hope Dusty hadn't seen in days. Meanwhile, a frantic whinnying pierced the air. The storm had spooked the horses at Mrs. Gable's stables. Sam, small for his age but with an uncanny knack for animals, was already there, his hands outstretched, murmuring softly to a panicked mare. Dusty watched, amazed, as the animal calmed, nuzzling into Sam's chest. Later, a group of townsfolk huddled near the ruined community center, their faces grim. "The emergency supplies. Where did they move them?" Mrs. Gable wrung her hands. "I can't remember." Maya, who usually got lost walking to the corner store, piped up, "They moved them to the old bakery." Before the storm, Mr. Henderson said the community center basement wasn't safe enough. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. "The bakery? Of course." Relief washed over their faces as they hurried off, guided by Maya's unexpected memory. As dusk settled, casting long shadows, Dusty found Tom tinkering with a battered generator near the community center. Sparks flew as Tom, his brow furrowed in concentration, rewired a damaged component. Dusty remembered Tom being unable to even change a light bulb before they found him. "Think you can fix it, son?" Dusty asked, his voice laced with a hope he tried to conceal. Tom wiped grease from his face, leaving a dark smudge on his cheek. "Almost there, Dusty. Just need to reroute the power." "Got it." With a sputter and a groan, the generator roared to life. A cheer went up from the small crowd that had gathered. Lights flickered on inside the community center, chasing away the darkness. Dusty watched as the children, each in their own way, had brought light back to this broken town. Maybe, just maybe, they could all rise from the dust. A shadow of doubt. Dusty, come in, come in. Mr. Caldwell's voice boomed, a welcome change from the hollow echo in Dusty's own house. He stepped into the bank, the scent of old paper and polished with a familiar comfort. Sit, sit. I've been thinking. Dusty perched on the edge of the offered chair, his gaze fixed on the intricate patterns of the Persian rug beneath his feet. The bank was doing better, a trickle of new businesses tentatively dipping their toes into salvation's parched earth. But it wasn't enough. The town needs you, Dusty. Needs your energy. Mr. Caldwell steepled his fingers. I want to offer you a position. Town liaison of sorts. Helping new businesses navigate the regulations, securing grants, generally greasing the wheels. Good pay, steady work. Dusty's head swam. Steady. Work. It was everything he'd been praying for, everything those kids deserved. Mr. Caldwell, I don't know what to say. Say yes, the banker chuckled, a sound like rustling leaves. Say you'll help rebuild salvation. And say you'll take care of those young uns of yours. Relief flooded Dusty, so potent it almost brought him to his knees. He managed a shaky yes, sir. I accept. The bell above the bank door jingled, a cheerful sound that abruptly soured in Dusty's ears. A woman stood there, framed by the desert sunlight, her silhouette sharp and imposing. She wore a tailored suit the color of sand, and her hair was pulled back in a severe, yet elegant, style. Regina Thorne, she announced, her voice a silken rasp. I'm here for my nieces and nephews. Dusty's gut clenched. Nieces and nephews? He hadn't mentioned anything about family in the reports. Regina Thorne advanced, her gaze sweeping over the bank's interior with cool appraisal before settling on Dusty. And you must be Mr. Rivers. So kind of you to take them in. She extended a hand, her smile a practiced curve. Their mother, my sister, was unwell, sadly unable to care for them. He shook her hand, her grip surprisingly firm. They're good kids, Miss Thorne. Regina, please. She turned her attention to Mr. Caldwell. I need to make arrangements for their transfer. I have a lovely home waiting for them in Santa Fe. A proper upbringing, you understand. Dusty felt a cold dread creep up his spine. Santa Fe? Proper upbringing? He pictured Lily's sketches, Ethan's boundless energy, even Leo's quiet observations. They belonged here with him in this broken, beautiful town. They seem happy here, Dusty said, trying to keep his voice level. Regina's smile tightened. Happiness is fleeting, Mr. Rivers. Stability is paramount. She turned back to Mr. Caldwell, her voice dropping to a confidential tone. I'm sure you understand the importance of family, especially in these unconventional situations. Mr. Caldwell cleared his throat, glancing nervously between Dusty and Regina. Of course, Miss Thorne. Family is everything. That night, Dusty found Lily sketching by the dim light of a kerosene lamp. The drawing was of the desert, stark and unforgiving, but a single flower bloomed defiantly in the foreground. Its petals were a vibrant splash of color against the monochrome landscape. What do you think of my aunt? Dusty asked, settling beside her. Lily didn't look up. She smells like money. He chuckled, but the sound was hollow. She wants to take you all to Santa Fe. Lily finally met his gaze, her eyes wide and shadowed. We don't want to go. He placed. Miracle in the desert. Dusty found the train ticket. Did she tell you what she plans to do with the orphanage money? Lily asked, her voice barely a whisper. Dusty frowned. Orphanage money? Lily nodded, then quickly sketched on a scrap of paper. She slid the drawing across the table, a grand building with a sign that read Thorne Investments above it. Underneath, in smaller letters, built with funds intended for orphan children. She bragged about it. Liam spat, his earlier anger returning, said we were just a stepping stone. Dusty's anger simmered. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to remain calm. We'll show her, he said, a plan forming. The next morning, Regina arrived, radiating an oily charm. Ready to go, dears? She chirped, her eyes darting around the sparse room, landing dismissively on Dusty. Lily stepped forward, a small, deceptively innocent smile on her face. We have a surprise for you, Aunt Regina. A thank you for taking us in. She led Regina outside, where Liam and Maya were setting up a makeshift stage using old crates and blankets. Mr. Caldwell, drawn by the commotion, leaned against his fence, his brow furrowed with curiosity. Lily cleared her throat. Aunt Regina, she announced, her voice carrying surprisingly well, we want to present a play about your generosity. The play unfolded with agonizing slowness, each child taking turns to narrate Regina's supposed virtues, their voices dripping with exaggerated sincerity. Liam recounted how Regina had dedicated her life to charity, even showing off Lily's drawing of Thorn Investments as a charitable foundation. Maya described how Regina planned to build the biggest, fanciest orphanage in all of New Mexico. Regina, initially beaming, started to sweat under the relentless sunshine. Mr. Caldwell's frown deepened as he watched the performance. He knew a setup when he saw one. Finally, Lily presented Regina with a certificate of honor, a crudely drawn picture of a gold star on a piece of cardboard. As Regina reached for it, Lily deliberately dropped it, revealing the back, covered in Lily's drawings of sad-eyed children behind bars. Mr. Caldwell straightened up. "Regina," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "I think we need to have a talk." The adoption ceremony was held in the town hall. Dusty stood beside Mr. Caldwell, watching as the judge finalized the paperwork. The children, dressed in their best clothes, beamed. Lily clutched a new set of art supplies, a gift from Mr. Caldwell. Afterward, Mr. Caldwell clapped Dusty on the shoulder. "You've done a good job, Dusty. A damn fine job." Dusty looked at the children, their faces alight with hope, and a warmth spread through him, chasing away the familiar anxiety. He was still struggling, still figuring things out, but he wasn't alone anymore. He had a family. And maybe, just maybe, that was the miracle he'd been waiting for.